Today, I'm going to talk about how yoga has improved my life. It has definitely changed my life. How it's improved the life of my clients, and how it could possibly improve your life if you haven't started a yoga practice yet and you're a bit curious to know what the benefits could be and what you can expect. So when we think about yoga, I think the first thing that comes in mind for many people is stress. This is because yoga is considered to be a meditative exercise. So what that means is that it pulls you into the present moment. When we are struggling with anxiety, we tend to be living either in the past or in the future. And yoga pulls you into the present. So in the present moment, you'll notice that it's a place where you are okay. There is no worries because it's usually just you on your mat being present. So that alone can help a lot with removing stress related to thoughts and stress related to being in the past or being in the future. Because usually in the moment on our mat, we can find that we have like an overload of stress from what we were doing before we rolled out the mat. But usually when we get onto the mat and we start doing our breathing and we start pulling ourselves more and more into the present moment, that's when we can start feeling all of that stress slowly melt away. And this can be quite emotional for some people as well, because it's a very big release of energy. So, a side effect of doing this could be it reduces negative self-talk, although that can come up during your yoga practice, especially if you're trying to achieve a certain pose. You could beat yourself up for not achieving that pose. But it can also boost your confidence. So there's a lot of yoga poses that really help with confidence, and it's very interesting to experience this level of confidence while you're on your mat. It can boost your mood as well. That is another thing. Practicing yoga, it's usually the boost of mood can usually come afterwards. So once you are done with your practice, you can feel quite relaxed, but also in a way better mood than you were before you started. It helps with self-esteem as well, because you are connecting with yourself. You're feeling your body when you're on the mat. So it nurtures you, but it's you nurturing you. And in that way, it can definitely help with self-esteem. And another one, for me personally, is I struggled very severely with insomnia when I was 16. And I carried that into my life as I grew older. And now I do have insomnia, but I think it's more related to changing sleep patterns. So if I don't stick with a habitual kind of sleep schedule, then I find myself struggling to fall asleep. But I did read somewhere about 5 or 6 years ago that going upside down can actually help with insomnia. So I tried that, and I don't know if it was a placebo effect or if it was really happening, but it helped the times that I did try. So yoga is a meditative exercise, but it's also quite, when we say meditative, you could consider it to be meditation in a way as well. It's a moving meditation. And if you allow for 10 minutes at the end of your practice, if you've done quite a dynamic kind of practice, especially if you've done a strong practice that has challenged you, if you allow for 10 minutes, then you can really allow your mind to go into this meditative state at the end, and you can really feel the benefits. So it really helps with a meditation practice as well, because it helps you see underneath those layers in a way. With a lot of practice, you can get to learn about the way you think, what kind of thoughts tend to appear in your mind, what feelings are attached to them, and you can observe this from more of a neutral place, where you remove the emotions and you don't talk back to yourself, but you just observe. And this can be quite life-changing, doing this a little bit every day. So even if it's just meditation and not yoga, so just sitting with yourself for 5 to 10 minutes a day can really change your life, because it can change the way you see the world, the way you see yourself, the way you react to things. It can make you less reactive as a person, and when you are in a reactive state, growth can't happen there. Growth only happens when you step out of that reactive state and you observe how you would have reacted and have a little think about how you could do it differently. So if it's a behavior that doesn't serve you and doesn't serve others, in my case, usually I would react to something, and then afterwards I would think about what I did and usually regret the way I behaved. So cultivating a regular meditation practice can really help you slow down. So step aside for a moment, take a second to think about how you are instinctively about to react to something, and take an approach that serves you and the person in front of you better. And yeah, so yoga can really help with your meditation practice, which is amazing. I usually recommend that everybody meditates every day because we are just so distracted in our daily life. It's really good to be present and to look into our mind in a way and see how and see where our thoughts are going, because usually everything is automated. Our thoughts are quite automated and just on autopilot most of the time. I know in my case I'm a very fast thinker, so I tend not to think before I speak. I just speak. So meditation has helped me a lot with that. So yoga can really help if you're experiencing pains in your body, like lower back pain. In my case, in my personal experience, I haven't really had any pains, so I can't talk for myself, but I've had clients who have come to me with herniated discs, and they have found that the yoga practice has really helped. Just general lower back pain from carrying babies. Yoga has definitely helped a few of my clients with that. Bad posture. I believe it has definitely helped my posture, because I used to be a tall kid. Now I'm just average height, but I used to be quite tall, so I grew very quickly, and the desks and the chairs were a bit small for me at school, and I had a very lazy posture at school, and yoga has really helped me lift. Now I'm just crouching a little bit so that I can fit in the camera, but my posture is usually a bit more like shoulders back and straight spine, which is great. Having a good posture can also help with your core strength and your back muscles and all of those supportive muscles. Another thing that is great about yoga is that it can be done at any age, at any stage of life, and wherever you're at, with your body, with your mindset, with your lifestyle, it can meet you where you are. That is amazing, because it's just you and your body. It doesn't matter if you're 4 years old or if you are 80 years old. Yoga can meet you where you are, and that is what's really, really beautiful about this practice. You're not lifting heavy weights, you're not running, you're just being on the mat. So usually within the confines of your mat. Of course you can go off the mat. I tend to go off my mat a lot, and I believe it's good to also break the habit of trying to stay within the confines of the mat, because it limits you in a way in your movement. But it does depend on what kind of style of yoga you're practicing, because for me yoga is more it's like an ecstatic dance where I just let go and I just be. And another thing that's really great is that there are loads of styles of yoga, so you don't have to be a pro, you don't have to know what you're doing, and you can pick a style that suits you. There's so many styles of yoga, so you can have a style that is really relaxing and just staying in some stretching kind of poses, or some twists for about 2 to 5 minutes, and just allow the mind to be present and just relax and release into the pose, not really moving around as much. And this is amazing for stress relief and to improve your flexibility. If you have lower back pain, this could be due to really tight hamstrings, so hanging out in those poses could be quite beneficial for that, and it slows you down, which is great, and it becomes quite meditative as well. And that style of yoga that I just described is called yin yoga, and then there's a style of yoga that is more dynamic, where it's either 1 to 4 breaths between each pose, and it flows from one movement to another. And this kind of style is called Vinyasa Flow, and I definitely resonate a lot with this style because I like to express myself through my body. The moment I hear some music, I am moving to the rhythm of it, and I find that practicing a vinyasa style of yoga can help boost my creativity because I'm letting go of rules. I even forget to do things on the other side sometimes. I'm just being here in the moment, letting my body do what it wants to do, and it might be a fusion of yoga with dance, or yoga with vinyasa with yin sometimes. So sometimes I might be doing one breath per pose, so really flowing from one pose to another, like long steady breath between the poses, and then all of a sudden I might just release into a pigeon pose, or I might release into any other kind of pose that feels good, and I might stay there for a little bit longer. So mixing up vinyasa and yin. A lot of yoga teachers like to label this as yin and yang, that's the word, which I think is fabulous because you can start your practice with breathing, and then you can take it up a notch, so you can start flowing 1 to 4 breaths per pose, and then you can start slowing down and then really holding the poses for a lot longer. And I teach a style that is very similar to this, but the part in between, we tend to really go fast and get the heart rate up, which I think is fun. It's a really nice form of exercise, but again, it really depends on what you need for your mindset, for your lifestyle, for your age even. When it comes to doing yoga with kids, it's more fun. You might imagine you're an elephant, or you might imagine you're a rabbit or something like that. So you bring in the playful side of things. So you bring in the games. You make it a playful kind of practice, which is beautiful. Another thing that is really, really great about yoga is that you need no equipment whatsoever, and you can practice outdoors. So there are some gyms in some countries that are outdoors, which is great, and I find that it makes such a huge difference when you knock down the walls and the ceiling and you're outdoors and you're lifting weights. It's even if you're inside a gym, but it's outdoors, it really boosts your energy. It boosts your sense of well-being. So you feel connected. So it's said in yoga that nature has a certain vibration. So it vibrates at a certain frequency, and when you're outdoors, your frequency tends to match the frequency of nature in a way, or at least it elevates it to that frequency if you're on a quite a low frequency. And that's why it's said that being outdoors can really boost your mood. So if you're also practicing some sort of physical activity outdoors, then it just multiplies it, and you get, it's just such a great. So even if you're just running outdoors, you get this really beautiful sense of well-being because you're actually deep down feeling a sense of connection. And in yoga, we say that we come here and we're trying to reconnect with the soul. So we're trying to become one. We're trying to find that connection, which is something that we can find in nature. So, and what's great about yoga is that you don't need any equipment. You don't even need a yoga mat. You can just go outdoors and do yoga. Amazing. You can do it in any country. You can do it at home. You can go traveling and do it anywhere. So it's just you and your body, your mind, and it gives you that opportunity to really look within and connect with that. And not only does yoga increase your sense of well-being, especially if you are practicing outdoors, it also boosts your immune system. Now, this has been proven scientifically, especially through meditation. So when you meditate, what happens is that your cortisol levels decrease, and that is highly linked to your immune system. But also inflammation in the body decreases with any sort of meditative exercise. So what happens when you decrease your inflammation levels is you also boost your immune system, and you tackle chronic disease. So if you are struggling with any sort of chronic disease, then it's usually caused by inflammation. So practicing, even if you don't want to be moving around and you just want to do the meditation, that's also going to help decrease inflammation in your body. And as a side effect to that, your symptoms are going to also be reduced. Your chronic disease can even disappear. So it is, you can in a way say that yoga can save your life. So it can go to that extreme as well, which is amazing. Just you, your breath, your body, your mind in the present moment can do so much. If we compare yoga to strength training is amazing. It's really good, and it's always good to have a good amount of muscle mass. It helps you with your daily life, helps you with posture as well. But there is a side effect of vigorous strength training, which is increased cortisol levels. So if you are engaging in strength training, then it's very good to combine it with yoga, especially at the end, to reduce cortisol, because that way you balance it out. Otherwise you can be carrying this cortisol in your body for days after. So do your strength training and then relax into some yoga poses, maybe some softer ones like yin yoga poses, just to loosen up the muscles, because of course you want to be stretching after training, but also to decrease the cortisol levels in your body. Now, if you don't have the time to stretch after your workout, then you can stretch the following day. You can do an actual yoga practice the following day, which is really going to help as well. Something that I have noticed, and this is very personal to me, when I do yoga, I feel a lot cleaner in my body. And what happens when I feel cleaner in my body is that, and of course this happens with exercise as well, but what happens to me is that I tend to migrate towards healthier food choices. And this has been since day one, since I've started a proper yoga practice of 90 minutes a day. Since the first day ever, I have noticed that I don't want to put any rubbish into my body after the practice. Now, of course, this is going to really depend on your food habits. If you eat a lot of junk food and then you do a 90-minute yoga practice, you might not notice this because you might have an underlying addiction to junk food, which I didn't have. My diet wasn't great, I guess, when I started doing yoga, but I was not addicted to junk food. So it was easy for me to be very mindful about what I was going to eat after the practice. Another thing that could stop you from this is if you have specific food habits, or if you have a very habitual food routine. And by that I mean that you just eat the same thing at the same time over and over again, and your body and your mind is used to that. So then it could happen that you practice yoga for the first time, 90 minutes, wow, this feels amazing, and then you just go back and you eat what you are very used to eating. In my case, I'm very used to always mixing up my food and eating a very wide range of different kinds of food. And when I did start doing yoga properly, I did notice that I was magnetizing towards options that in my mind felt that they would feel clean in my body. And then, so I'd be eating like juicy salads and things like that. And what's very interesting is that during that time I wouldn't eat salad. I didn't like, and I was never a salad person. I've never been a salad person. But then I started doing yoga and I started eating salads, which is interesting. Another huge benefit for me, which is something that I am now used to quite a lot, but I remember noticing this in the moment, was increased body awareness. And by that I mean that I was better able to control my internal stress response to my external world. And as I said before, I had that moment where I could step out of myself, step out of my reactive behavior for a moment and look at it from a very neutral place, and then decide on whether I wanted to act on that or not. And what's interesting is that, we all have a programming. right? And my programming would usually, at the beginning, would try to be stronger than my logical mind. And sometimes I would be aware that that's not the way, but then my programming would still be stronger than my awareness and would go into autopilot, and then I would get a negative response from what I did or said, and then that would prove the awareness, the moment of awareness, right. So what would happen is that I'd have to do that over and over again, but then every time that I'd do it, it would be a lot more subtle, and it would be more of a reminder of, remember last time you didn't listen to that awareness that you had of this moment, and you messed it up, basically. So then every time that I'd go into my programming in the same kind of situation, I'd have less of an urge to follow through with that, because I was aware of the negative result. Another thing is, it really increases the way you sense energy. You become a bit more sensitive to, well, when I say sensitive, I mean more aware to energy around you. But a side effect of that could be that you become more sensitive as well to energy around you. And there's a downside to that. So if you're too sensitive to energy around you and you don't know how to allow that energy to bounce off you, but instead you allow it to penetrate into you, then that is probably a negative side effect of yoga. And that's something that has happened to me. But to be quite honest, I've always had this sensitivity. I've always been very sensitive to energy around me. And I've always been very incapable of knowing how to not allow this energy to penetrate deep into the core of who I am. And it can be energy that I pick up from other people, but this is all linked to a belief that I have about myself, which is a topic for another time. But practicing yoga has definitely made me more sensitive to that, which I think is great, because being in tune with your energy and being able to notice energy around you can be quite beautiful, as long as you know how to manage that energy. So if you're a very empathetic person, then what might be happening is that you allow that energy in, and then you don't know how to let it out. So it stays within you, and it's not your energy to absorb, but you're carrying this energy, and it's not until you go back into your mat that you can try to work through it and try to release it. But I think, with that comes trying to understand how to bounce this energy off you, instead of letting it go deep within. And rolling out your mat and dedicating this time to yourself can have a very big impact on how well you take care of yourself after your practice and for the days later. Because you are dedicating that nurturing moment to yourself, there is a tendency to try to keep that up, to try to keep that going. So your self-care habits could improve with that little time that you spend on your mat. And there's a lot of things that you can take off the mat. So what I noticed in my life is that I struggled with mental strength, with resilience, and I was forced to practice these things on my mat because I chose a yoga practice that is strong. It's quite physically demanding, and you don't always manage to achieve the pose, which means that you need to come back and revisit the pose over and over and over again. So it helps with consistency, and that's something that I really didn't have. Now I'm a lot more consistent with what I do in my life, but that was definitely a missing element before I discovered yoga. And as with any sort of meditative exercise, even just meditation, the more control you have in your mind, the more power you tend to have in your life. Because the mind is what runs your life for you. The beliefs that you have about yourself are all in the mind. And the way your life unfolds is a byproduct of your belief system. So if you can be in charge of your mind and in control of your mind, and if you can decide what your belief system is going to be, then you can become a new person whenever you want to. You can change any aspect of your life that you want to change. you can be who you want to be. It's funny, but people say just be you. But what if you could tap into this magical aspect of the mind and remove things about you that don't serve you, and step into the true core of who you are, so your true self, but also add on things that do serve you. So be you, but without the layers and with the add-ons. And this is when we'd start to look more into yoga as a whole. So not only yoga as movement, or not only yoga as asana, which is like the yoga postures, but more yoga as a philosophy and a way of life. So when you start getting into that, then things become very interesting when it comes to the mind. Because you start to understand that stress is the root cause of all disease. And this is something that my guru, so my teacher back in India, used to say a lot. And I used to question a lot because I've got quite an analytical mind. I like to look deeper into information that comes my way. And I started to ask myself, how many different kinds of disease do I know? And then, can stress be the root cause of this disease, of that disease, of that disease, of that disease, of that disease? And at that time, I was a little bit confused. But then now, with all of this additional information that I have, I start to see where they're coming from with this. And it's mainly because there's been studies that have been made on people who have, this is quite interesting, people who have split personality disorders, where in 1 second they are Julia and in the other second they are Mary. And Julia has cancer and Mary doesn't. And then when this person is Julia, they do tests and they can see cancer cells. And when this person is Mary, then the cancer cells aren't there, or something like that. There's been some sort of study, some crazy study, and this just shows how powerful our beliefs are. Our beliefs can change our cells. It's crazy. It's really crazy. I guess the only way to know if it works for you is to try and change your belief around something. So if you're struggling with some sort of disease, then can you truly, truly, truly believe that you're cured? But you have to believe it. So you have to make it a new belief. So you have to work on this every single day. You have to be very, very, very consistent. And when you truly believe you're cured, then you might just be on the right path to curing naturally from anything. I think it's something we just need to try for ourselves. I think beliefs can be very deeply rooted, and it can be very challenging to overwrite them. But if you have a very strong mind, you might as well give it a go. I didn't expect this video to be this long, but I think I'm going to wrap it up here. Just to summarize that last bit that I said, just to take it into the perspective of yoga, how can yoga help change your beliefs? You can practice changing your beliefs while you're on your mat. So you can be loosening up into a pose and say an affirmation, and then allow a feeling to come with this affirmation. But the feeling has to be a feeling as if you were already feeling as if this affirmation is true. And doing this over and over and over again during your yoga practice can help really ingrain this belief and this feeling. And from personal experience, this has definitely worked for me, where I have changed my beliefs in this way, and therefore changed the outcome of my life. I've changed the course of my life, the direction of my life, and things have come my way, whether I have just not filtered them out, whereas usually I probably would have, and just been able to see those opportunities, whereas before maybe they would have always been present, but without doing the work, I probably would have been oblivious to them. because the brain is taking in so much information every second, it filters out what it believes is not relevant to you. And so when you start changing your beliefs, then you start seeing things that are more in line to that. And that's why we can talk about the power of manifestation. Everything is already present. Everything is already there for you. Everything is already a reality for you. You just need to believe it, and you need to feel it, and you need to allow it in. And then that way the mind is going to let down the barrier. It's going to kick down the wall, and it's going to filter out the noise so that you can see it and you can connect with it. And that's how we really start to manifest things and attract things into our lives. It's mainly we're just becoming less blindfolded to them and more open-hearted to receive them. That's it for today. That was quite a long video. I was intending to make it just a 10 to 15 minute video, but this is a topic that is, I think, could be very useful to people who are just considering starting a yoga practice. I think it's very important to be consistent when you start doing yoga, but once you get into it, you find that you tend to keep it up because it feels good to be doing it. So it can be addictive in a way, but in a good way. So if you're new to yoga, please do consider starting, even if it's just with 5 or 10 minutes a day. And I will see you in the next video. I hope you subscribe to my channel. It will really help. And yes, I'll be making more videos like this. On this channel, I share healthy recipes, yoga sequences that you can follow along to, yoga tutorials. I share interviews with very interesting people, live at the Plant-Based House, which is where I'm currently living, and run events, usually food related, but also wellness related. And I share my lifestyle with you and my personal experiences with mindset situations. Much love. I'll see you in the next video.